Definitely, I've seen unwanted pregnancies. I've seen teenagers getting pregnant. I have seen teenagers having all of these sexually transmitted infections and they didn't even know where they got it. There's a lot of misinformation about how pregnancy works, about how deliveries are done. So there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of education that not put out for general public. Usually they end up with us when things are already worse, when things are bad and they're not getting any better.
Welcome to At The Backdoor, guys. I'm your host, Gab, and today I'm joined by Dr. Issa Matibag, an OBGYN, an obstetrician gynecologist. Now, she's dedicated her whole life and career to the female reproduction area and everything that has to do around it. But in her line of work, she sees everything and nothing that only relates back to one thing: the lack of sexual education in the Philippines. Now, her as a TikTok creator, or just a creator as a whole, she navigates it on her own channel, but now she's joining us to really expand on the problem of sexual education here and how it can be taught better. So, ready for this? Welcome, Dr. Issa Matibag. You are an OBGYN. Yes, something that I've been practicing to say correctly the whole time. And it's an obstetrician gynecologist, something that I also did not know how to say before this. So, could you please introduce yourself to our viewers?
Hi everyone, I am Dr. Issa. Some of you may know me as obgynoncall.ph on TikTok. So as an OBGYN, I deal with obstetrics, which is practicing delivering babies and all of that, and pregnancies, as well as gynecology, which deals with the reproductive tract of females. So I am also a content creator where I talk about general OBGYN, reproductive health, and sexual health online.
And today we're going to talk about sexual health and sexual education here in the Philippines, and also about all the yucky things that you have seen. But they're not going to be too many because they said to me, oh, we don't want to talk too much about this, but I love hearing about it, so we're going to add a little bit. Sexual education at home. You grew up here in the Philippines, so just enlighten us. I'm guessing the viewer would already know a little bit about it, but not the best kind of education here.
So in my experience, at home, my mom and dad would always just pursue abstinence. It's more of like not really touching the topic and more of really just telling me not to do it or, not to engage when I'm not ready to do it. We didn't even touch the topic on condoms or how to protect myself. And it was really more of just don't do it.
But then what about in school? How was it taught there?
So in school, it was more of we went through the different systems of the body, and we eventually came to the reproductive system, where a couple of videos about conception was shown to us. The concept of sex was not thoroughly discussed, and I think we vaguely talked about contraceptives, but it was very short. It wasn't as comprehensive as I thought we would have.
So it was actually just about like how pregnancy happens, really.
Yes. It was more of that, actually.
Yeah,
like
I can imagine. With the video was like a little,
Yeah,
it's like, oh yeah, and it lays in the egg.
Yeah.
That's
it.
Just my own experience. I remember my first touch upon the reproductive system was in, here I think it's called grade 5. So I was 10, 11?
Oh, that's very young. Yes.
Yeah, right? What they did, they talked about the systems. Of course, reproductive system was one of them. But then we're 10, 11, 12 years old, we're not stupid. So everybody was actually very interested in the reproductive system. And we all had to do a little project, but everybody wanted to do reproduction because it was interesting to us. And I think that's how they played it, the primary school in Europe, right? They took our interest, they added it a little bit, but then it sparked our interest a bit more. So we learned about how it works. And in secondary school, then we really started to learn how about diseases, contraception, and then it was already kind of like not even talked about, like the concept of how pregnancy happens, how the actual reproduction part. It was actually just watch out, this could happen. These are the precautions you can take. But then when you talk about home, my home, what they did, they looked at my school projects and they thought, that's good enough. So I still had pretty Filipino parents when it came to that. They also kind of just like did not touch on the topic. One fun story, my father once took me to a cafe and he sat me down and he said, don't forget to use a condom. And that's all he said.
And as I was saying earlier, this could be also a difference between male and female sex ed because for males, of course, I feel like the parents would just say, okay, yes, put on a condom. But for females, it's more of, oh, don't do it. But they can't explicitly tell us okay, use a condom on your partner.
It's funny you say that, taking the male and female perspective, because of course for me it was just male perspective. I have a sister, but I don't even know if my parents ever talked to her about it, right? Like, I should ask her or not, because my sister, it's just weird to talk about it. I don't want to.
And supposedly our parents should have had more talks with us about it, even informed us how it works. A lot of it really has to start with the home rather than outside experience or trial and error.
Some trial and error. No, but we were talking before we started shooting about the things that you've seen, right? And we never touched upon the topic on parents. If they see their child who suddenly has an STD, STI, what is the correct term? STD or STI?
Actually, both are.
But STIs, then, I think it's predominantly used here, or unwanted pregnancy. And do they think to themselves, I could have helped prevent this? Because that's what we're saying right now, because you say it starts at home.
Parents should have been also trained to actually talk about these things. Again, age specific. Maybe they can start with anatomy when their children is more aware of like their bodies, and then later on about the actual sexual act. Parents should be guiding figures to their children, and it's something that of course is not taught to parents, but parents should be aware that they should be the ones to also help their children through these different stages of their lives.
I'm kind of also thinking that the next generation now, like you, I mean, you're a gynecologist, I think your kids are gonna be totally fine. But I think
so.
I think like the next generation, I think are much more aware.
That's the goal.
Yeah,
that,
little by little.
We'll be able to educate more people out there, especially since social media is very informative nowadays. Hopefully, they'll be able to pick up a thing or two, and this is why I'm doing also my content, so that they also have something that they can teach to other people.
You work in the field of gynecology, so I'm thinking that you've seen it all. There's nothing,
many things.
there's nothing anymore that surprises you, but every time you feel disappointed about the sexual educational system. I'm kidding. I don't think that far, but I think you've seen it all, right? Like, what do you see? Like, what are like the most, like, let's not say heartbreaking, but the things that you feel, these are the easiest things that could have been avoided.
Definitely, I've seen unwanted pregnancies. I've seen teenagers getting pregnant. I have seen teenagers having all of these sexually transmitted infections, and they didn't even know where they got it. There's a lot of misinformation about how pregnancy works, about how deliveries are done. So there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of education that not put out for general public. Usually they end up with us when things are already worse, when things are bad and they're not getting any better.
But I was also kind of thinking about like how the traditional way of thinking is involved here. Contraceptives are not so easy to get here. And I think condoms are really expensive in this country.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
My whole salary. No, just condoms. No, I'm kidding. For example, the birth control pill. Is it easy to get here just to say, I want to be on birth control?
Again,
or do you have to kind of like...
A lot of people don't know that these are very accessible in your barangay health center. So they're actually given for free if you actually just go there. However, again, there's a stigma that when you go there, you're already pregnant or you're doing it, so you're gonna get judged. Since there's that stigma, then you don't go there and you'd rather just do a trial and error.
Like risk it for the biscuits. So they are accessible. I didn't know that. So it is accessible. So anybody could just enter. Anybody can just enter their local barangay health center, and you can get contraceptives. I did not know that was a thing here yet. I thought it wasn't like...
I think it's more of the stigma that prevents people from actually getting the care that they need.
So I'm really happy to know about that. Barangays help women with their contraceptives and medical care. But maybe something that the viewer doesn't like so much, but I do. What is like the yuckiest, like of all diseases? Like,
well, one of the worst things that I've seen, and it's actually very memorable to me, was seeing a pregnant woman give birth, and she had all sorts of lesions down there. So we delivered the baby. However, again, we were concerned about the different lesions that we saw. We were asking, okay, how did you get this? We had to inspect her partner. We had him come in, and we saw that his reproductive organ was also filled with these lesions. And you were just wondering, why would you even do it with someone with these kinds of lesions, right?
And when you say lesions, what am I thinking? Like blister kind of lesions or like open wounds?
Blisters, open wounds, and with purulent material as well. So the fact that she allowed someone to penetrate her with that kind of condition, it was kind of baffling to us why this would happen. And again, it boils down to having a lack of information, lack of education, and again, consent as well, right? And
Yeah.
these things are not being taught in school as well.
No, I know. I do not know what, of course, goes into their head. You can think of many things like they don't know maybe, and they're just like,
Just
like,
do it.
Yeah, exactly. How does it affect the child afterwards?
One of the things is that there could be congenital anomalies for the child if you were not screened and treated during your pregnancy. We had to ask Pediat for their opinion and to evaluate the baby as well. What people don't know is that these infections can also affect pregnancies. It can affect future generations if not treated.
Okay.
For example, like chronic hepatitis B can be passed
Okay, yeah.
from mother to... And people actually don't know that hepatitis B is actually a sexually transmitted disease, right? If untreated, then it can lead to liver cancer as well. So if this is passed from mother to offspring, then again, it's a generational thing that gets passed on.
So we talked about sexual education at home, at school, and of course you firsthand see the consequences that could happen, right? So is there anything else? Let's just wrap it all up for the viewer out there.
Yes, if you are interested in learning a lot of things about sexual health and reproductive health as well, it's also best to see an OBGYN, of course, if you're a woman. We can help you a lot with in terms of contraception, your options, especially if you're not sure what to get. We also provide that service of screening you for what medical conditions you have, so we can best prescribe your contraceptive of choice as well, especially since I think a lot of women also don't know that which one is best for them, because we have a lot of options. We have the pill, we have the injectable, we have the implant, we have the intrauterine device, and sometimes they're not actually aware about these things. It's one thing to be aware of your different options. It's another to choose one and actually start it. And one of the things that you can do is approach your OBGYN and ask them about the different options, help to get screened as to which it would be the best one for you.
And also the barangay thing, I think that we should really specify that, the barangay medical center.
Yes. So each local
Yeah.
government unit has a population committee, or the POPCOM, in layman's term, where they offer sexual contraceptives as well. They have the pill, they have the implant or the intrauterine device, and they also offer permanent sterilization, like bilateral tubal ligations. Yes, it's best to visit your local government unit or your OBGYN or your barangay health center for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Issa, for coming on At The Backdoor to talk about.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was a pleasure to have you. For you viewers out there, please take this advice heavy-heartedly of what Dr. Issa said. If you are aware of all these things, we're really happy. But if for the people that are not aware, share this, share it to anybody who you think could benefit from this. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you guys learned a lot from this video because I surely did. Like, and don't forget to subscribe. If you have any comments, please comment them down below. You want to know more about Issa? It's in the description down below. Again, her content is fantastic about anything to do with medical stuff and also some dirty stuff because I saw some sex toy information there. That was kind of fun. At least now I know what my first sex toy should be like. Be sure to check out all our other videos where we talk about controversial and taboo topics in the Philippines. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Again, thank you again, Dr. Issa.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye. Welcome, Dr. Issa Matibag, an OBGYN. I'm practicing so hard to say it the whole time backstage before we were shooting this.
OBGYN.
No, that's fine. It's so bad, right? Oh gosh. Anyways,
I thought it was a joke.
so many times I practiced and I can never get it right. I must be so nervous.